Welcome to the Learn to Sew Academy channel. Please remember to subscribe. Thank you.
Hello, welcome. Today we're going to be making a very simple top, and this is what I've sketched here. This is really very basic. I'm just gonna make a top that's going to have a slight A shape, and I'm gonna have an opening in the front. We're also going to have a sleeve that's going to widen as it goes down, and at the bottom of it we're going to have gathers. We're going to make another piece that's going to have gathers, and what we're going to be needing in this video to make this project is going to be the shoulder, the bust, the blouse length, sleeve length, and a sleeve round. So let's get started. To start with this project, what I'm doing first is I'm folding this into two, and because I want the pattern to lay vertical when it's completed, I want this pattern to stand straight from the top down. So I'm going to cut it separately. The front I'll cut separately and the back I'll cut separately so that I can position my pattern the way I want it. So the first thing I'm doing is folding this into two, and as I fold I just want to make sure that I have enough, and because this is going to be a long top, it's going to get to just above the hip area. Because of that, I'm going to also put the hip into consideration. Even though this is going to be A-shaped, I still want to make sure that it's not going to be too tight around the hip area. So the hip I'm using here is 46. When I divide that by 4, it's going to give me 11.5. And when I add my allowances for sewing, I'm going to be getting around 12.5, depending on the allowance I'm using. So based on that, I'm going to make sure when I fold this that I have enough for that hip measurement. So I'm going to start to work on my measurements now. So the shoulder I'm going to be using in this project is 16.5, and I'm going to divide that by 2. And like I always explain, the reason we divide the shoulder by 2 is because when you take a measurement of the shoulder, you go from one end of the shoulder to the other end. So that's why I'm dividing that by 2. This has been folded into 2. So 16 divided by 2 will give me 8. And then I'll add my allowance. I'll do half. So that'll give me 8.5. And then I'm just going to measure down here around 10. And what I'm doing here is I'm just marking this fabric to let me know where I start to measure for my bust. So it's just a guide to where I'll start to measure for my bust. So the bust I'm going to be using is 40. If you divide that by 4, you're going to have 10. And then you had your allowance. I'm going to do an allowance of 1 inch. So that'll be 10 plus 1 inch. I'm going to be at 11. And then what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to measure the length of my blouse. And for this blouse, I'm going to be doing 27 for the length. But I'm going to consider my seam allowances. I'm going to do 1 for my hemming at the bottom, 1 inch. And then I'll do half an inch for the top for joining at the shoulder area. So that gives me 1.5 additional inches. So that takes me to 28.5. So I'm just going to measure that all across this fabric. And I'm going to join that. And now, since I have this, I'm just going to cut out this part of the fabric. And then I'm going to fold the back so that I can cut them both together. For the back, I'm going to have a zipper. Again, I'm going to pay attention to my pattern. And since I want it vertical, so I'll just fold it this way. But because I'm going to have a zipper at the back, when I fold this, I want to make sure I leave my zipper allowance. So what that means is when I fold this, I'm going to have some extra allowances at the back. So it's not going to be the same measurement as the front, only because of the zipper allowance. Now I have 1.5, so I'm gonna use 1.5 for my zipper allowance. And so since I already marked my shape here, I'm just gonna connect the bust to the shoulder, and that is just to form my armhole. And you can do this freehand like I've done, or you can use your cuff ruler. And then from this point, all I'm just doing is I'm just gonna slant it all the way to the end. Since, like I said, I'm making a slight A shape. Now for the neckline, I'm going to be doing 3.5 for the width. I'm gonna do like a 2.5 in the front. Now I'm going to have a little opening in the front. I'm just gonna extend this a little more by 1/2 inch and make it 3. So this is 3.5 by 3, and this is just another preference. There is no other fast rule about it. You can do whatever you decide to do. And this is another way you can do your neckline. You can take your French cuff, your cuff ruler, and you can use that to do your neckline. But of course you can do it freehand just as I've done. And for the back, I'm going to be doing a 1.5 here. The next thing is going to be my shoulder slant. I'm going to do a slope down here. And for that, you can do anything between 1/2 inch to 1 inch for your shoulder slope. So you just want to slant it. And then now we just cut. Now I'm going to cut the neckline. So I'm just going to make a mark here. But then I'll cut the front separate from the back since I'm using different necklines. And my back is 1.5, so I'm just gonna cut that. And then the next thing I want to do is that shoulder slant. And then I'm gonna open up the back because our zipper goes in there. Then for this top, I'm going to make a little pocket, inner pocket. It's gonna be really shallow, it's not gonna be deep. Then remember that for the front, I'm going to open this up a little. So right here, I'm gonna do 2 inches. So by the time I'm done sewing, this should give me like 2.5 inches. So must always remember to put seam allowance into consideration anytime we're cutting. So now I'm gonna go ahead and cut the sleeve. And then when I do that, I want to measure what I have for my armhole here. Altogether, this is about 11 inches. I'm gonna consider my pattern again as I do my sleeve. I want the sleeve with the pattern vertical as well. So I'm gonna put that into consideration as I cut the sleeve. We're using a sleeve length of 20 and a sleeve round of 22. So as I fold, I want to make sure I have enough. I'm going to cut the two sleeves separately just because the entire width of my fabric is not long enough for me to cut the two sleeves together, especially since I'm considering my pattern. I need a sleeve round of 11 after sewing. So what I'm going to be doing here is I need 11 plus my allowance. So I'm going to do 12. And the length I need for this is 20 inches. And then remember that we have some additional strip of fabric that we're going to be adding at the bottom. And we can do anything from 3 inches or 4 inches for the bottom. So I'm going to go with 3 inches for the bottom. And what I'm going to do with that is that I'll take 3 inches out of the 20 inches sleeve length. That leaves me with 17 inches for the sleeve length. But I'm going to add allowance for joining at the bottom and for joining my sleeve at the shoulder area. So I'm going to add half for the bottom, half for where I'll join at the shoulder. So altogether, that's going to be 1 inch plus my 17 inches. That's going to give me 18 inches. So now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to shape out my sleeve now. And if you recall, when I measured the armhole, I had 11. Now we must remember that we're still going to join the top at the shoulder area, and we're also going to be joining it at the side. So we must remember that we have some allowance in that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put my tape measure such that I measure out that my 11 inches, which is right here. And what I want to do now is from here, I want to do my S. Okay. So I want to just form like an S. Sometimes it may look like an inverted S depending on the placement of your fabric. And the next thing I'm going to be doing is from here all the way down, it's going to form like an A for the sleeve. Because like I explained with the diagram, the sleeve is going to get wider as it comes down. So now I'll cut this. And then I'm going to do the next one. I'm going to trace that. I'll make my notch right here in the center. So the next thing I'm going to be doing now is to make the lower part that's going to have the gathers. And how big or small you make that is entirely up to you. I have 12 right here for my sleeve round. This 12 here is on the fold. On the fold, I'm looking for 18. So that's my 18, and I'm going to be cutting 3 inches for each one. So I'm just going to fold it this way. When I do my 3 inches, I must remember to put my allowance. So I'm going to have 1.5 allowance to it. 1 inch will be for the bottom when I hem it, and half will be for the top when I join it back to the rest of the sleeves. So 3 plus 1.5 is going to be 4.5. And now I'll cut. Since this is folded, I'm going to cut it in the middle, so that gives me the 2 for the 2 sleeves. And that is that. So the next thing I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to make pocket for the top. Remember I said I'm going to have a very small shallow pocket. As always, I'm folding this first into 2, and then again, because I want to cut all the pockets together, I need 4 pieces. I have a video that explains in depth how you do a pocket freehand. I'm cutting it a little shorter than what I have here because I want it to be shallow. So the next thing I'll do here is just to make my interfacing for the blouse. I'm just aligning the back to the middle of the fold. I'm tracing the neckline and the shoulder slope. And I'm going to do 3.5 for this as well. And now I connect all the lines and I cut. Because for the back we have 2 pieces, we're going to divide this into 2. For the front facing, remember that we have an opening here in the front. So when we do the facing for that, we want to make sure that we have enough to cover that part where we have opened this up. So I'm gonna place the front on my scrap fabric here, and we're going to trace the neckline, and I'm gonna trace the shoulder slant. Now this is open for 2 inches. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to measure 3.5 for my facing, and over here I'm gonna measure my 3.5 from where my opening is gonna stop. So that's my 3.5. So I just want to connect it the way there, and now I can cut this. And I'll open this for the 2 inches mark. And this completes how to cut this simple top. Very simple, very straightforward. I hope this has been helpful. Please leave this video a thumbs up. And if you've not yet subscribed, please do so by clicking on the subscribe button. And don't forget to click on the bell. That way you get to know when I upload new videos. Thank you. See you in my next video.
Click the link down below to see how to stitch this.